Hi, I'm Jim.
And I'm David.
And this is the Practical Guitarist Podcast.
The podcast for people who eat, sleep, and breathe guitar. The Practical Guitarist Podcast is brought to you by Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. Great Lakes Guitar Pickups provides fantasy tones at prices a practical guitarist will love. Featuring top-notch construction, attention to detail, and a fully custom product, if you can dream it, Great Lakes Guitar Pickups can probably build it. Follow them on Facebook at facebook.com/Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. Are you a regular listener? Why not? David here reminding you of all the ways you can participate in the Practical Guitarist Podcast. Subscribe using your chosen podcast app. Review us on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or Google Play. Find our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Practical Guitarist or on Twitter as @PractGuitarist. Support the show. Merchandise is available in our Threadless store at practicalguitaristpodcast.threadless.com. And donate to us via Patreon, available at patreon.com/practicalguitarist. Reach out to us directly via email at questions@practicalguitarist.com. Hello, Jim.
Hi, David.
I understand that you've started a new position.
I've accepted a position like it's a big deal. But I have
the center who sells guitars.
The center that sells guitars. I'm going to work there part time, at least through the holiday, for some extra money and for the lower cost stuff.
Yeah.
So I've kind of taken advantage of both sides.
Buy me a looper.
Yeah. Once I get my ID,
probationary period.
Yeah, I think the probationary period is like a week. It's ridiculously
well. It's it is big box retail except musical instruments. So
yeah, but you got to have an ID. They haven't assigned me. HR hasn't assigned me an ID into the POS yet. So once I get that, then I get my discount. So I got to go through orientation and all the other stuff and learning how to make money. I can make money off of you. But anyway, so I was at Guitar Center and I was there because I have to bring in my birth certificate and stuff. So I'm there and I see the Samick, right? I saw a clear guitar and I'm like, okay, Samick couldn't possibly make one like a Dan Armstrong because I've played and held a Dan Armstrong before. They did, and it was the like the atomic weight of like Mercury. I mean, it was like just this. I mean, a planet Mercury.
Jim has sailed the world on battleships that are lighter.
Yeah,
guitar.
I picked up 5-inch 54 rounds that did not feel as heavy as this thing. I grabbed it by the neck, right? And I'm figuring, okay, I'm just gonna pick it. I go to pick it up, and I'm like, oh my god, it's literally like a boat anchor.
Yeah,
and I swear to God, it had to be in the 18 pound range or so. And I thought, oh my goodness, because you're picking it up by the neck, and I'm thinking, wow, but it was well cared for. I had to give it this. You could tell it was a player and played, but you could also tell that whoever owned it cared for it deeply. And it actually has a cool look.
So was it a Samick or was it a Greg Bennett?
No, it was a Samick. It was
prior to Greg Bennett. Right.
Well, no, okay. So one of the things about Samick is across the ocean, those of us who go to the Orient and who go to when I bought my Samick in Turkey, okay, so they're not as well. I don't even know if they sell much here anymore at all, but they were mostly an overseas brand, and so when I saw this guitar, I'm not surprised because we're a Navy town and a lot of guys like myself that buy stuff overseas and bring it back. So I saw the Samick thing on it and I was like, wow, that's a cool find. $250. That thing's going to go home with somebody. I know it is.
So as we talk about this, I owned a Samick, right?
Yep.
Samicks were really, really popular here in the Chicago area for like the uber low end mom and pop music stores, especially places that sold pianos, because Samick was first and foremost as a Korean piano company. I think it was Korean.
Yeah.
And they made guitars for everybody at
That's
one
right.
point. They were the court of their day.
Right.
And I think court actually came out of that because people got some of the companies got kind of frustrated dealing with Samick, and so they started migrating away from them.
Yep.
Now, first and foremost, I had my first guitar was a Samick. It was some sort of like take on a Jackson Dinky, but the body was like, guitar is usually like a 2-inch or like an inch and a half or an inch and 3/4 body.
Yep.
This thing had to be every bit of an inch. And it was the softest basswood you could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I dinged it, I was sitting on my bed, and they had the metal bed frame, right? And I just it like dinked against the metal bed frame, and there was this gigantic gash in the side of the guitar, and I'm like, I ruined my guitar. I could freak out.
No, you didn't.
I hadn't been playing very long, but not long enough to know that Samick wasn't a great brand.
Well, yeah. So what happened was when they shipped them over here, they just didn't ship very good guitars over here.
It's not even just good guitars; they just didn't make good models for the States.
No, they didn't, and that's the thing. And so a lot of people, when you go over there, they had better instruments, they had better quality, better make.
Well, I actually suspect that Samick had like a complete line of instruments that retailers here could purchase, but they weren't interested in any of the mid-level or the higher level stuff.
No,
all they wanted was the super cheap, like entry level. This is your first guitar. Here we go.
That's right.
And so that's actually what I ended up buying. It was just, and it got me through. The pickups weren't bad. Actually, I would say, compared to now, let me date myself here. I think I got it in 2001 or 2002. And pickups in it were serviceable. Yep. They weren't great, but they were serviceable. And actually, I would say, because I played some Harley Bentons since then, and I would say the Samick's, the pickups are better than Harley Bentons. Now, the body thickness, not so much.
Yeah.
But everything else was okay. And like that guitar got me through. And actually, I sold it to a coworker who then gave it to his kid, and actually saw the guitar not that long ago. It was a year or two ago. I saw it in his possession. So
yeah, so the one that I saw in Guitar Center has a real Floyd Rose, not a license, not a, what do you call it? A real Floyd Rose, and it's got EMG pickups. Now, whether that was stock or not, I don't know.
My guess is that's upgraded. I'm guessing the EMGs are an upgrade, and I'm guessing the bridge is also an upgrade. It probably had a licensed Floyd on it originally.
Probably. Yeah, because it was not a licensed Floyd. It was a real thing, and it's a real set of EMGs. And you can see every wire, every.
Does it sound any good?
Yeah, it sounded pretty good. I was surprised.
Unplugged, not plugged in.
Yeah, I didn't plug it in.
So that's why I have a feeling they put the EMGs in it. Because I have a feeling the body sounds like trash otherwise. I've heard that at the Dan Armstrong guitars too, is that they sound like trash. It's total stage guitar. Nobody's using it in the studio kind of deal.
Yeah, no, it's all for a look. But I can still see, because for $250, even though it's just for a look, I can see somebody grabbing that.
I mean, if you got one that was weight relieved, I would definitely be interested.
Oh, you would not want to wear this.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like if it was a Strat and it was like weight relieved, like, okay. I mean, I could probably vibe with that. Swimming pool route right to the edge of the pick guard.
Yeah.
And the whole like, here you go. This is the best you're gonna get for what you're doing. I could probably get into something like that. I just don't like lucite bodies. I mean, you could see the wires in there and stuff. Like it'd be cooler if it was really see-through, but it's not. So
yeah, well, I mean, you can't see through wire, so it's not
right. Well, yeah, I mean, if there's some optical trick they could do to like hide it in a crease or something, like run it around the horn of the guitar so that you could.
Honestly, I think I would have done something weird there with like coloring or something, just to so that it didn't look as ugly.
Or put LED lights in it.
Right. And you could easily put LEDs in this thing. All I can say is I don't even know if it's still there.
What's the price tag on that?
$250, $248 actually. I'm gonna be. So when I saw the headstock,
I mean, for that kind of money, you could buy the guitar and part it out.
That's what I'm saying. So when I saw the headstock, I knew it was an early Samick. So
Yeah,
I
I
really,
recognize the headstock straight away.
yeah, it was like a '90s Samick.
You have to
Like,
send me that picture after this episode so we can post it up with the show notes.
yeah. Well, yeah, it's really cool. I liked it. I thought it was um, an interesting piece. You don't see a lot of interesting piece. Yeah, and some guy said set it up for drop G sharp. I don't know if you can go that low on it, but I
So
can tell you this: that body isn't going to give.
I want to do some housekeeping.
Yeah.
We don't do this very often anymore. I've been trying to do it in every episode. It's been getting into the tail end of the episode, and I think it's better if we put it towards the front. Join our Facebook group. Obviously, we have a Facebook group. You'll hear us talk about it on the show from time to time. It's a pretty active community. A lot of the people that we talk about on the show are in our Facebook group. Join it. Join us. Join us or die. And in the Facebook group, you will find that we have announcements. In the announcement section, you can find things like how to support the show through Patreon, by buying merchandise from us over at Threadless, or all that happy stuff, or you can just hang out and talk to us. Like, it's cool. The other thing is we're sponsored right now by Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. If you're looking for pickups and you don't really, let me put it this way: if you're looking for authentic vintage pickups and you want something that's truly authentic, the place to go is Great Lakes Guitar Pickups.
For sure.
Nick Bongers does a lot of the work over there. He's running the show. He's a nice dude. He's taking the time out to give us pickups for giveaways. We have a set that we're working to get installed right now. As soon as those get done, we're hoping to make that magic happen. And then
I got to send him back one.
Yeah, and then so if you could, just pay him send him a Facebook message or follow him on Facebook. And
Right.
if you're ever interested in
Instagram.
pickups, like he's the guy that can make you whatever your heart aspires to. He's kind of a genius in that way. So and he's also very highly educated too, so you can have some very interesting discussions with him as you communicate with him. But yeah, Jim, I'm looking forward to hearing about all of your wild adventures working at Guitar Center through the holidays, because you're going to see stuff that you're like, what is this? Because I'm sure there are things that you miss at the store now because you're not there every single day. You know what I mean?
Right. And so, I mean, I'll only be working part-time, maybe 2 or 3 days a week, but I am kind of looking forward to it. I got to tell you, so Jeff Biadecki, he is a decky. Thank you.
Yeah.
Posted a thing about PRS guitars. I'm looking forward to seeing the new SE line.
Yeah,
coming in, and the S2s that are coming out, because they're doing SE mirrors.
Yeah, I saw that, and that totally makes sense, because the quality level of the guitar has gone up.
Yep.
And the pickups are already made, outside the States anyway. So just make it an SE model. If you're not selling enough of them at the S2 level, make them an SE model. And actually, I was super excited to see that, because I kind of was ticked off when they canceled the mirror, because it's like the guitar they make that I'm most interested in.
Yeah. It's I'm really excited to see that. I'm excited to get my hands on a custom 24 hollow body.
Do you know what I played today that I really liked?
No. What was it?
I played the JPM model from Sterling.
Did you like it?
And
Sterling
JPM? It was like $650, and it was the best $650 guitar I'd ever played.
Really nice.
Like, this is crazy. And it had the color shift finish, so it was like purple to green, and they make it in a 7-string, which means that come time for me to get my second 7-string for backup, like, that might be a contender.
Yeah.
So, dude, I don't like the idea of buying a Sterling, because I've heard various quality control issues, like on the cheaper ones to the more expensive ones. But at the same time, it's like, I really don't want to buy a Music Man either. I don't want to spend $3,000 on a JPM. That's crazy.
And
I certainly don't want the what's the one that everybody's buying now? The new John Petrucci model.
What is it called? The JP. It's not the Majesty. It's the
Majesty. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. I just don't. I mean, like, the Majesty doesn't do it for me. So
I mean, believe it or not, if I was going to buy one that was a signature, I'd probably go with the Luke 3.
Yeah. Do they have to make that in a Sterling? I don't think they do.
I don't think so, and probably for good reason. But anyway, it's exciting to see that. So For 2020, PRS is coming out with a hollow body standard, a hollow body 2, which just looks killer, the Mira, and the Starla. So, and of course, burled ash and poplar burl. I honestly don't like burl. I don't like the look of burl.
It has to be like a specific burl, and the top has to be just the right top. If you get one that doesn't look right, they're just kind of ugly looking. Oh, yep. There is a Sterling Luke, Jim.
A what?
There is a Sterling Luke.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Luke 2 or Luke 3?
I think it's based off the current model.
Okay, so that'd be a 3.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And it comes in, you can get it in a flame top in blue, or a flame top in brown, or the metallic Luke blue.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, so the local Guitar Center has 2 guitars that are really, really got me chomping at the bit. So they have a 12-string. I've talked about the 12-string Rickenbacker. But they also have, finally, and it's in whale blue, the color I want, they have a semi-hollow CE. And I was like, jeez. So definitely be playing
guitars here that I'm interested in. Yeah, I'll have to look at their model lineup later, because I see a couple of guitars that would kind of fit the bill for different things. That they make. So yeah, Sterling's cool. Yeah, man.
So a friend of mine, he's going on a he's on a Music Man kick. So he went out and he bought a Luke 3. He bought a Valentine, the Valentine model. I'm not crazy.
I think those things are super.
I'm not crazy about the Valentine, but he bought a Valentine model and he bought a JPM. I'm like, geez, bro, man, he shelled out some cash.
Yeah, that's like $9,000 right there.
Yeah. Because he didn't buy them used.
Yeah.
So that's closing in on I think that's about
like between $8
and $9,000,
$7,500 and $9,000.
Yeah,
it's craziness,
dude.
You know what? There are a lot of guitar for the money, but I think if you're going to start spending that kind of money, just buy vintage stuff.
Yeah, at that point,
honestly, you could go out.
At that point, he plays for a disco band. At that point, go out and get a '60s a '60s Strat.
Well, I was just going to say, like, if you got $10,000 to spend, right? I can go buy 3 Les Pauls, or I could buy like 3 70 Stratocasters.
Yeah,
because you can get 70 Strats for between $3,000 and $4,000 all day long.
All
if
day
you find
long.
the right buyer, you get the right deal. Yeah, it works out. You can get vintage like 60 SGs for like $3,500.
Yeah,
I mean, it almost
and then hold on to that thing,
and well, it's an investment at that point.
Player and an investment, exactly.
And that's one of the things that I wanted to point out. Like when a lot of people look at Les Pauls and stuff, like, yeah, it's what are they, $2,700 now, I think, for a standard.
25 for a standard, $2,499. All 3 standard models are $2,499. The 60s.
I thought they were $2,700.
Nope, 60s, the 50s, and the 50s P90. $2,700 is the modern.
Okay, maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, and I personally, if I'm going to get one, I'm getting the modern. I want the weight relief, and I want the push pulls.
Yeah, so I guess maybe my theory doesn't stand up. It is actually nice to look at Gibson and kind of think their average guitar is about $2,000 and not $3,000, which is what it was.
Yeah.
So, whatever.
Yeah, they've come down. The other great thing about the Gibson guitars right now is that because they're only making 3 colors max in the Les Paul line, you get a 60s Les Paul or a 50s Les Paul. All 3 of them only have 3 colors, and the 50s P90 comes in 1 color, gold tone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the thing is, do you want a T-burst? Do you want a honey burst? Or do you want a gold tone?
And
that's really what
that's a whole other thing too, because all right, so I don't really consider that the Gibson is actually making 3 colors. I think the way I perceive it is that Gibson's just using different bursts, which is okay. I personally, I'm totally fine with that, because every Les Paul I've ever wanted has been a burst of some sort. Or there's like ebony ones too, but you want a custom color? That's the custom shop's for. Do you want to, Now granted, I think it would be nice to see a company just like taking production models and spraying them the color you want and charging you $500 for it.
Right.
But that's what Kiesel's for. So, I don't know. It's a whole thing. We can talk about that some other day.
Yeah, but you can always take a Gibson Les Paul and get it sprayed
Yeah,
for the same amount of money.
and that's true. I
Here's the
I
thing,
know.
here's the
I just like when I see that, I always question like who's doing the work. It would have to be the right person.
Yeah, and I mean, if you got a receipt and it was done by, say, you did a telly and it was Jeff Sen in Nashville, and I mean, you can
Well, and that's
something like
we were having a conversation about that. Me and I forget who it was now. One of our show listeners, and we were having a conversation about that. Just that thing. You can have guitars resprayed and stuff, but it's not going to add value. I don't care who does it. Like,
no,
and it's not that it's not going to add value. It's just not going to change it at all. In fact,
no.
that's a really weird optical illusion I just saw. Anyway, maybe I did take the wrong medication, Jim.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what I was trying to say was that you can have a guitar resprayed. You can have. I'm not just talking about custom work done, but like a lot of people, I've seen this on Reverb. There's this trend of like, X guy rebuilt this amp for me or whatever. Like that's somehow going to make it like retain value or something. And it's, I just no one cares because you have no proof that guy did that for you. Even if they give you your certificate of authenticity, like you'd have to know him and ask him, like, did you do this? Here's the certificate of authenticity. And he says, yeah, I remember paying that one. Or I don't remember paying that one, but I must have because that's my signature. I kind of shrug my shoulders at it. It's like, okay,
I don't think it would add value. I don't think it'll, if you take a guitar and you get it done right, if it gets done right, then it won't subtract value either. 30 years from now, nobody cares if it was blue, orange, yellow, or pink. What they care about is, does it sound good?
Well, and you'll see refins on Reverb and people won't say they're refins. And it's funny because like you can see streaks and stuff in them. It's like, where do you think anybody is going to buy this and not yell at you after they get it and go, there's streaks in the paint here?
Right. Well, that goes to some of the listings I see, and I, especially on Facebook, Reverb has got some that are like this. But somebody will take 2 pictures of a guitar. I want $6,000 for this thing.
Yeah.
Oh, guess what? Not based on 2 pictures. You're not.
No.
Well, I don't care how good
they're looking for tire kickers, is what they're looking for, because they know that they can get you in the door. They can make a deal. That and that happens too, where people are like, you know what? I'm not going to take very many pictures of this. It's just for sale, local only. You call me up, we'll meet. I'll show it to you. Yeah, because then they know they got your money in their hand, like in front of them. So
that's that's the thing. It really comes down to your interest in, like you said, in their thing, their item, and then whether or not they can lure you to come to their house and take a look at it. I just don't. I'm not driving 15 minutes to see something I don't know if it's worth going to, much less 45 minutes or an hour. I guess I'm just a jerk that way because I've been like that.
Well, I started playing with a new band this week. Well, actually, a couple weeks ago, before I had the flooding, which I want to vent about the flooding on the show, but I'm not going to vent about the flooding until I know more about what's actually going to happen. It's just been a nightmare, and it's continuing, and it's making things worse and aggravating me. And frankly, I don't want to yell at the microphone this evening, so I'll avoid that for the time being.
Grab your microphone.
So I joined up with I didn't really join them. It's like it's a loose conglomeration of guys that get together and they play and they do shows and they get paid and but basically it's like no commitment. If you can't make it, you just say you can't make it and nobody is going to shoot you down or anything. And there's enough players that like if I didn't show up, they're still going to play and they're still going to have a good time and it's going to be a good show and people are going to enjoy it. And Jim, you've seen the set list. It is and this is why I wanted to talk about on the show. So I know in the past of the show, like I've always said, like I'm an originals guy first and foremost, and I still am, and I'm still doing my solo stuff, and that's not going to change. I'm taking a little bit of a break thing because I need to write some more material. I need to work out some more covers to kind of fit into my set so that I can keep people interested in those kind of things. So this has been a great way to like take a look back at the situation though and kind of get the lay of the land for how the other half lives, and that's the people that do covers and bars and things like that. So there's a number of songs in this. Well, Jim, but I can't relate. Like I don't.
No, I know. I get it. I get it.
So it's actually interesting because I'm kind of putting myself in your shoes, and I'm like, I don't really know that like I can do this long term.
Yeah.
Because even though I'm playing like, all right, let's just talk about the set list. Let's start there, and then we can work back from that. So I don't have my Spotify.
I have. Hold on. I got the
there's
list.
a couple of songs in there that I want to focus on though. I'm playing Escape, parentheses Pina Colada,
Ha ha ha.
and I'm playing Wagon Wheel, which oh good God. And I'm playing Margaritaville, which that's another song that like honestly, I went to practice it the other day before the rehearsal, and I was like, what am I doing here? Like, what am I doing?
I'm gonna read some songs.
Swore I never would play, and here I am playing.
I'm gonna read some songs for our listeners.
Oh gosh.
Sitting on the dock of the bay,
that's
learning
a great
to
song.
fly.
I love that song, and Learning to Fly is great.
Ripple, Folsom Prison Blues, Mountain Dew, Soul Shine. I love that song.
Yeah.
Margaritaville. We said that one. Wild Horses.
I love
Ain't
Wild
Too
Horses.
Proud to Beg. Chicken Fried.
Ain't Too Proud to Beg is fun to play, by the way.
Whoops. Why did I go?
Can we not talk about Chicken Fried? That's
Hold on.
another song.
Arthur theme. Is that the Arthur theme?
From
like
the TV show.
From the TV? From Arthur, the TV show, the kids' TV show.
Yes.
I was thinking, once in your life you will find her. No, it's not that one. Okay. Friend of the Devil.
What a wonderful day.
I am so sorry that you have to play a Grateful Dead song. Okay. Will the circle go unbroken?
Ripple is a Grateful Dead song in there too.
Yeah, Friend of the Devil. Catfish John. Long Black Veil. Ring of Fire. That's a song you can have a lot of fun with.
Ring of Fire I like, and I get to play the horn part, so.
The Wait. That's a good song. That's a fun song.
Which one?
You can The Wait.
Yeah, I like The Wait. But I think we're mashing it up with another song, so I'm like, I want to play The Wait by itself.
Yeah.
You
Are my sunshine. You are my sunshine.
That's one I actually haven't played yet.
Sunshine.
There's
God help you.
Chords in that song, right?
There are some songs. No, there's a lot more than 2 chords. No, there's a lot more than 3 chords in that song. You better look it back up. They might play at 3 chords, but it is not a 3-chord song.
No, actually, it's a 3-chord song. Look at it right. 4 chords. Sorry.
Okay.
And an E7, if that counts.
Yeah.
D, A, E, G, and E7.
E7. You got I'll Fly Away from Alison Krauss.
Yeah, and that's another like couple.
Catfish John. That's another. Isn't that Grateful Dead?
I don't think so.
Oh, it says Old and the Way.
Yeah.
Old and in the Way. Long Black Veil, Ring of Fire. Again, they got it listed twice.
Oh, I think it's just because the way I sent you the picture.
Oh, the way you've sent me the picture. Never mind. Bertha, Live at the Fillmore.
Yeah, that's another.
That's a Grateful Dead song for sure. Yeah. Eco or Iko.
Yeah.
And for what it's worth. Oh, For What It's Worth, I played that one.
Yeah, I mean, there's some good songs in the set. A lot of it's like pretty brainless. Like as long as you know the chord progression, you can just feel muddle your way through it. And I'm doing a lot of prep work for this because I want to build a foundation so that I can go play these tunes and not have to like really think about it. Just do a rehearsal or two and be ready for the next show. So I'm taking the time to learn them right. And the thing is, we're not playing a lot of this stuff in the original key, and so I have a sheet right here in front of me. Actually, it's in Word where I have all my chord charts. And actually, I was given lyrics and chords originally, but for me to flip through my iPad, Jim, there's like 25 songs on that list. For me to be able to flip through my iPad and get every song, I'm like, this is nuts. I'll just get as many as I can on a page, and then just page through them. It'd be a lot faster to do that. So I've got it to where I've got 10 or 12 songs on a page.
Well, for people who do stuff like this, there are set list managers that you can use and then you can use the Bluetooth foot pads, which if you get a little Bluetooth thing, they're like $30.
I just don't want to spend any money on it. Like until I start making some money on it, I don't really want to spend any money.
I'm just saying, if you start making any money, it's worth it. So I'm back at the church. I was only a week off. I got a week off. I'm back at the church doing the gig. It looks like it's going to be lasting for a while. And I've got the Guitar Center thing, and of course my regular day job that pays pretty well. So I went from eating ramen noodles
Are
to
you? So you're not playing?
looking at
You're
it.
not playing in a local band right now, or are you just?
Oh yeah,
Okay,
oh yeah,
I didn't
I'm
know you
doing
were
that too.
I didn't know you were doing that too. Like
Yeah.
you were fitting it in.
Yep.
I need you to
God
start
knows
editing
I'm
the
gonna
show,
fit
Jim. And I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah. And I need to start editing a show
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
recording at least 3 YouTube videos a week.
Yes.
So yeah, I want to do more of that. I want to kind of start doing some behind the scenes stuff at Guitar Center. So we'll see
I
how
think
that
I'm more
goes.
interested in hearing about your escapades at Guitar Center than anything else, because
Yeah.
because everybody, like and me included, can talk shit all day long about people who work at these places, meaning like the big box music retailers. But nobody really knows what's going on behind the scenes unless they've worked there. And I always
Yeah.
get the feeling it's kind of like a fraternity too. It's like, well, yeah, we're paid on commission, and then it just kind of trails off, and that's the end of that conversation.
Well, okay,
Like-
so commission is an interesting thing. I mean, commission is based so everything is different based on the item you sell. So it begins with that. If you sell a pack of strings, that's one thing. You know?
Yeah.
If you sell 3 guitar straps, another thing. If you sell a Gibson Les Paul, it's quite another thing. You would think I'm going to make a lot of money on this Les Paul, but you could probably make more on strings.
Strings, right?
The thing is that, so I don't know if I've heard horror stories of this, and I wish it wasn't true, but I'm sure it is, because of the way that marketing makes sure that they want you to sell stuff, right? So one of the things one of your metrics is how many of those darn warranties you can sell.
Yeah.
So
That's
I've heard horror
every
stories.
industry now.
Yeah, and I've heard horror stories of people where they walked out, and if they hadn't looked at their receipt, they wouldn't have seen that they put a warranty on there that they didn't ask
That
for.
happened to me.
And unfortunately, here's the thing, and I'm not giving the guy that put that or the gal that put that a break, but you're kind of held to a 30% number, and your bonuses and your pay raises are based on staying at that 30% number. Now, I worked at GameStop, and I didn't even have to try, and I was way above normal. So I'm not so sure that the salesperson was really trying. But yeah. But there's a book called The Tyranny of Metrics. And if you have Audible, I truly recommend that you grab that, because that's one of the things that will make people do stuff you would think they would never do.
Yeah, because they're afraid they're going to lose their job. I mean,
yeah,
I get it. The guy that did it to me, though, like, I've had business with him before, and he was, I don't know that his job was at risk or anything like that. He was kind of a snake when I dealt with him before. Yeah. And so now I told the manager, I was like, when I come in there now, I said, if he's there, I won't deal with him. I said, I'm going to ask for another sales associate, because I said, this is the second time I've been burned by this individual. And and then there's another guy at this other location that I go to, who's another one that, like, he tried to talk to me today, and I was like, no, you can go to hell. Like, you go to hell and you die.
Go to hell, you die.
Right.
You die.
Because
little South Park.
Yeah, because I was like, he came up to me and he's like, oh, how's it going? And like saw me playing, I was playing through Dr. Z, and he's like trying to get me to, to like pony up. And I'm like, listen, I'm being helped by someone else. And he's like, I thought you just walked in. And I'm like, I did. And and then he kind of like looked at me funny, and I'm like, that guy over there, he's gonna get my commission. And then he turned around and walked away. There was no more combativeness after that. But I was just like, you don't remember me. You don't remember what you did to me, because there was something that there was a verbal altercation between me and this individual, and it was and there were other people involved that were there, and this guy was wrong. And everybody knew it. But when I left, everybody knew it. So it's like, you can continue to act like a jerk to me, but you're never getting my money again. So
yeah,
albeit through your regular salary. I hate going there. I just hate it now, because I've had so many run-ins like that, because I spend a lot of money in these places. Like, I do. I spend way too much money in these places.
Oh yeah. Well, the truth is, I mean, obviously I do too. And the thing is that personally, I don't want somebody going home and talking bad about me.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to do my best. I told them because they've got the new T-shirts that are for the Guitarathon thing.
Yeah.
I said, well, make sure you put an extra large T-shirt aside for me.
Wow.
And but yeah, I'm kind of excited because so I had a comic book store in the 90s, and I sold comic books. And the thing that really stunk was it kind of took some of the magic away from loving comic books.
Yeah.
Because, man, you get people come in well, this thing sells for $3,000, on comic books. I was like, this thing sells for $35 according to Wizard, which was this.
It's still around.
Yeah. And it was this magazine would tell you what the kind of the price was, but they were always high end. They always were high end. Plus, they were a published magazine, which means that they were out of date by weeks by the time you got
Yeah.
them.
Well, the thing is, they were everything that's rated in there is in pristine condition, which doesn't exist in the real world. But when you pick it up off the shelf and buy it, it's not pristine anymore.
Right. And so anyway, they would they would do that, and then they'd say, well, I should be able to get $30 for it. It's worth $30. I'm like, I'll give you 10.
Yeah.
I'll give you 10 because I've got to put it on I got to put it in here, and it's going to sit.
Inventory, right?
And I probably won't ever see $30 for it. I might see 20 if I'm lucky. And so, it's got to go in my inventory. It's got to go against my stuff. But a 10-year-old doesn't understand that. 12-year-old doesn't get it.
Right. And that's who your target audience is.
Yeah, that's who your target audience is. Now, think about it. So I'm going to be starting in the holiday season. There's going to be grandmas and grandpas and cousins and aunts and uncles.
A lot of squires.
I'll be selling a lot of guitars. And it's like, okay, if you just want to spend a little bit of extra money, I don't want to be that salesman. I just want to show you that if you spend a little bit extra money, I want to show you what you get. And and I don't want to say that it's a bad thing, but the affinity or the bullet might not be the best thing for them, or the box, especially the one they put in the boxes with here's one with an amp and a set of strings and a book on how to learn and so on and so forth. The next thing you know, you go, that guitar will never play in tune. It will never intonate. I don't care how much. I love these people who can play really, really well. Who, like, there's this. You ever seen the YouTube video where the guy walks into a Walmart and he plays like a plastic guitar?
Yeah,
he plays
Stevie Ray Vaughan song on that.
Supposedly plays the Stevie Ray Vaughan thing on it. And I'm thinking to myself, first of all, this guy's like he's a Nashville cat, right? He's a really good player. He will find the right note, and you will never hear one of his mistakes or the fact that thing actually sounds like crap, because he will pull the best tones out of it he can. But he'll do that 3 or 4 times and then start the video and say, hey, look what I can do.
First act guitars are playable. You can tune them.
Yeah,
I don't think you're going to be able to cope with them on a stage. We're talking
or get more than 2 or 3 songs out
that you get at Walmart, right? Somebody I know had one, and when we played it, the gauges of the strings were wrong. From the factory, they had it was like playing a banjo. It was crazy how like rubber bandy it was.
I've seen them where the strings were in the wrong place. Like the G string was where the D string was supposed to be.
Yeah. Because it's just like they're just throwing them in a box. Like it's a toy. They're not expecting that you're actually
going to play it. They don't care.
I don't know. I guess I understand. I understand that side of things when companies make a product for the beginner that's like below beginner level, right? Like just what I like to call the toy level.
Yes.
But when you start, because I don't know if you look, like First Act for a while was selling like $90 guitars, and they were selling them at like Toys R Us and stuff. And I'm going, wait a minute, you can go buy for $10 more. You can buy a Bullet, right?
Yeah,
which is not a toy,
right?
Why would you buy a toy? Like,
I don't know. That's what I'm trying to say.
I don't know.
I laugh because if you don't laugh, you cry. You know what I mean? But like, it's just like that guy that's got the locally. He's got a Les Paul. It's one of the. It's a black Epiphone Les Paul. He's got it listed for $750. I don't care how good your Epiphone Les Paul is. You are not going to get $750 for it. Not going to happen. I could buy a brand new one for $650. I don't need your used one for $750. I don't understand where some people get their logic from.
I don't know, man. And I've actually seen, not super recent, but I've seen stuff like on Facebook where people are charging more than it was new. Like rare, and then they put rare on there, and it's like, why? Because nobody wanted it. Like, how is this going to make it more valuable?
Rare makes it better.
No, rare only makes it better 40 years from now. Right. And even then, we talked about investment instruments. If you're going to invest in something, you have to buy something pre-1970. Like that's
right now.
Well, I mean, you could buy a 70s guitar. I guess that's kind of a misnomer, but you got to buy something pre-1980 for sure, because anything you buy now, it's not going to increase in value. It's just not.
Not right now.
It may never.
It'll take a long time.
With the amount of guitars that are produced today, it will probably never gain in value. It's like the comic book thing, Jim. We all know old comic books are worth money because most of them were thrown out or burned. And now we're in a society where people, when they caught on to that, it was like there was these new comic book booms and people were going out buying all the new books. And then all of a sudden they realized, oh, this is a speculator's market. And then the prices went through the floor. And so that's what's, modern guitar market's basically in the same boat right now, where people are buying guitars thinking they're going to be worth something. And it's been a speculator's market for a really long time.
That's why it always irked me when, like we talked about these before, these like recently the Jimmy Page guitars that
the Jimmy Page
painted, and it's like, why would you want those? They weren't ever played by Jimmy Page, not even for a second.
Are you talking about the tribute, or are you talking about the production model?
I'm talking about the tribute.
Yeah, the tribute.
He signed them. Yeah. He signs them, and that's it.
Well, that goes back to the hero worship discussion from last episode. There are some people that want to be their hero, and they don't really want to play guitar. They want to pretend they're Jimmy Page, and that guitar is for those individuals or collectors. And that's the other thing that irks me today, is that we have collectors' guitars. Gibson did a line of the government guitars where they painted them all in olive drab green and like the camo brown and all that stuff, because it was the wood that they got taken away by Uncle Sam, that then they had gave back once they realized they didn't have paperwork for it. My whole point here is that these companies produce every year. They produce some like weird kind of off-kilter crazy guitar that's specifically for collectors or specifically for dealers who have a collection for them to like put on the wall. Like Fender did the chrome Stratocasters, and they've done gold-plated pick guards and stuff like that on certain models.
They did the Game of Thrones ones.
Yeah, that's another perfect classic
those
example.
I don't even think, because I think that they only made like a few of those, and I don't think they've sold.
Well, they were a stud guitar anyway. But they make, so like Ed Ruman used to talk about it. They made guitars that would go specifically to a dealer. It was never supposed to end up in a player's hands, and it was like an award you gave the dealer for their loyal service or whatever. Those kinds of guitars are made for collectors. They are not made for players. And when you see companies doing that, that tells you there's a speculator's market. That's what that means.
Yeah.
No industry does that unless they know there are collectors out there. That is aimed specifically at collectors. That's why we should all be kind of frightened about what's going on in the guitar market as a whole right now. Yes, guitars are reasonably priced for what they are right now, but we produce an awful lot of them that don't go anywhere. Go into your local mom and pops. If you have a local mom and pop Fender dealer, this is this perfect example, right? If you have a local mom and pop Fender dealer, go in there and look on the tags and see if you can find a date. You won't. Take a couple of the serial numbers down, take a picture with your phone, and go home and look them up. And you will often find that many of the standard guitars that are hanging on the wall there have been hanging on the wall there for 5 or 7 years. And that's why we've talked about this before on the show. the guitar industry is not a conservationist industry. We produce way more guitars every year than are sold. And they will continue to pump guitars out so long as some mom and pop is willing to buy them and go belly up when they have too much inventory and they can't afford to sell, or they can't afford to, continue operations. And that's
Right.
not right. That's messed up. It's knowing your market, knowing how big you really are, right? So we've talked to, I don't think we had any pedal builders on here before, but
No.
we've had conversations with pedal builders on the side. I know I have, where they will tell you, we don't produce 10,000 of this pedal because there's no market for it. And you go, well, how are you going to grow
Right.
your company? And they go, we're not interested in growing the company. Like, we're completely comfortable where we're at, where everybody is making a good living wage, and we have enough money to have pay increases and stuff every year. And, we're selling enough pedals to pay the bills. And you stop and
Yep.
you think about that for a minute. That's a whole other paradigm that, you don't have to grow. You don't have to make your company super big. And I think that's where Fender and
Right.
Gibson have kind of lost things, is they've decided that they're just going to continue to grow irregardless of whether the industry supports it or not, or the market supports it. So as long as there's these collectors out there who will snatch up, like at the end of, so we're in 2019 now, at the end of 2020, when Gibson announces their new line and they discount all the prices, or at least the retailers discount all the prices on the 2019s, there will be a slew of collectors that will swarm through your local guitar shops who will buy all the interesting stuff, and you'll be left with the leftovers.
Well, what will be interesting is if Gibson does any of that, because
Yeah,
okay,
I don't think they're
2019s
going to this year, but
right, the 2019s came out. I'm not talking about the ones that are now that
Yeah.
are not dated. So the 2019s came out; they've already been discounted. Most of them are gone.
yeah.
So
Are you
when
talking about
you and
2018s?
I'm
Because this is 2019. I think they're still producing
yeah,
2019s.
well, no. So okay, so in 2018, before JC came in, obviously Gibson started making 2019s in 2018.
Well, that's
So it's like your car
that's my
model,
point.
right?
Is like, I don't consider that.
So
That's the new model line, but I consider the actual year it was
right,
produced. So you
right.
look at the
So
serial date.
right. Yeah, so I'm just saying that the ones that say 2019 on them, model made in 2019, those are pretty much gone. So what you're seeing now, the ones that I was talking about earlier, right? There's 6 colors.
Yeah.
There's 3 colors in each year, except for the 50s P90 that's just in gold top. So you've got some T bursts, lemon
Right. I mean,
bursts,
we don't
tobacco
care about
bursts,
the
and stuff like
colors.
that. Doesn't matter. But what's important is they said we're not going to go and do a bunch of colors. We're not going to date our guitars anymore. You'll have a 50 style, a
Oh,
60
right.
style.
But they change things. So that you're right. They're not going to probably do that next year, because they realize.
They got to hold on to it for at least a year.
But that doesn't
too.
necessarily mean they're not going to produce a bunch more guitars. And
Oh no.
that's
That now.
so at some point, old models have to get discounted, and the retailer will be up at their discretion to determine how they price those discounts, because they can't
Well,
just
see, that's
say,
just
well,
it.
we're going to arbitrarily say everything we bought last year is going to be this much.
Right. So that's the thing that I was getting at. So next year, is the dealer going to be? Is Gibson going to be able to hold the dealer to say, yeah, you got to buy X number of guitars from us? We've already got
a really good
Y number
question to speculate on. I could see a couple scenarios playing out there. Number one is, of course, they say, you know what? It's open season. You can average the prices together, and you can sell them at this. Which that would be the obvious one, right? Like the open season model, where it's like, okay, so you just got to make at least this much off of them, and then anything in there is fair game.
Yep.
I could see Gibson saying, listen, we're giving all of our dealers the ability to mark the guitars down 30% between this month and this month. And then in that month, you're going to start receiving new guitars. I could see Gibson doing something where they let the amount of guitars sitting on the shelf, and I think this is probably the most interesting option they would have, is based on the amount of guitars sitting on the shelf, they would be able to give an appropriate discount to all of their the same discount to all of their dealers, because they don't want to piss anybody off, but say, okay, so you've got, we know that there's 30% of the guitars left over from last year. So what we'll do is we will discount the guitars coming in this year and the guitars last year by 7%. and
Right.
that's the new list price for the following year.
Or they can attach bonuses to it. So if you look at the way cars work, right? Every year a new car comes out, right? 9 times out of 10, there's no change in the car, right? The 20
Yeah, they usually do a
14
refresh
and
like 3 years in, and then other than that, there's nothing.
right. So if Gibson goes the way of the car dealer, which they could do, they could say, okay, you got end of year model at the end of the year, which is coming up, November, December, will allow you to discount the guitars. And then, like you said, will allow you to discount the guitars. And the number that if you reach this threshold number of sales, that's what car dealerships do. Because they always tell you, like, oh, you're getting this car $50 above cost. You're like, how the hell are they making any money?
That
They're always
ain't
selling these
the real
guitars
cost. That's why.
because well, right. So what the dealers do is they get the car in, right, and then if they sell X number of
yeah,
year
it's
make
consignment
model,
basically.
right, then they get a bunch of money and they get a bonus check from them. So they really, it's the cost of the guitar. Legally, they can say it's the cost of the guitar, but it's not the cost of the guitar. They get or the car. The car was marked down a certain amount. They got a certain
Right.
money back. So this is something that Gibson and any of them could apply. Is instead of marking last year's down, because that's all people do. The smart people are like, I don't have to have it today. I'll wait 10 months. I'll buy it when it gets marked down.
I was just going to get to that because they had done that for like 5 years in a row because Gibson started attaching the date to the model, which was really weird in the guitar community. They started attaching the date to the model, and then the retailers picked up on it, and then they were using that for their pricing. Like, that immediately becomes big red flag, because everybody knows if you wait until January, you're going to get that guitar for $500 or $700 off.
That's
and
right.
that's the kind of discounts they were getting. I mean, I bought a desirable 2016 SG Standard T for like $850.
Right.
I mean,
which listed for like $1,300 or $1,400 all year long. Yeah.
So that's why I'm bringing this up, is because I think they saw that hole and they realized they were losing their shirts on it, and they went, let's fix this. What we'll do is we'll just keep the same models for 3 years, and maybe then you get the 3-year markdown. But the 3-year markdown is not as bad.
It's a hard thing to do, but what they can do is in that 3 years they can find what the balance is of their sales, because then they'll say, oh, you know what, people really did want us to do the lower cost thing, and they wanted us to keep the 50s and 60s and the P90. That's what they're looking for. Or they could say, you know what? No, we sold more of the quote unquote modern.
How was I'm just trying to think about how this impacts the rest of the industry and how other companies handle this, because Fender does not date their guitars, right? They're model names. And I can remember going through the American Standard series, and then
but the thing is, so I've been in the store and I saw, so the Fender Elites are deeply discounted.
Yeah, I know.
Now. I saw an Elite brand new on the shelf.
Didn't they announce new ones? Is that why?
Yeah. So now this Elite that's hanging on the shelf, the Elite Precision was like $300 off, and the Elite Strat was like $600 off. Whoa!
I would make a suggestion guess, right? That Fender can afford Fender. So what is, I know this is going to sound crazy, but like, just stop and put yourself in Fender's shoes. Fender sells more, and I've heard this from sales reps that work for them. They sell more American Standard guitars than anything else in their lineup. And I know,
and they stopped making the American Standard.
Well, they don't call it an American Standard now. They call it the Professional series or whatever, the American Professional, Standard Professional.
That's
or
what I was getting at.
But you know what I mean. So that particular model base was their bread and butter, and that's why they've worked so hard to keep that guitar down in price versus all of its competition, right? Because they know that that's going to be their bread and butter. Now, interesting thing to note is when they were selling those guitars as the American Standard up until 2 or 3 years ago, they never dated them. Even though the features did change, they didn't date them because they didn't want to get into this trap where they were going to have to discount that line because it was older or whatever. And I can remember during the last transition when they went from the 2-point bridge to the vintage style 2-point with the with the bent steel saddles, because before that they had more modern saddle design. I can remember when they went between that one and they discounted the ones with the modern saddles, right?
Yep.
But they didn't discount them that deeply. I mean, I think they were $150 off when I was seeing, and they didn't last long either. So because that's a highly desirable guitar. Like everybody wants to have a Strat in their closet, or under their bed that they never touch, which it happens to people. So, but I'm just wondering if Fender is like, they're kind of wise to this, and that's why their marketing department doesn't handle things that way. Because I'm assuming product development is probably a joint task of marketing and engineering at both of these companies. And so for them, like there's engineering wants to build the best guitar they can. Marketing wants to build the cheapest guitar that they can, because when they meet in the middle, and that's how you get a product, right? Because marketing wants to increase profits, engineering wants to make good guitars because they know they'll sell better. So there's it's a little give and take on both sides, obviously, but I think when you look at a company like that and you kind of notice how they do things differently, I think Gibson's looking at what other companies are doing. And I don't, as I said, the whole year thing, I don't see that happening in any guitar manufacturers. PRS doesn't do it. Schecter doesn't do it. They don't attach a year to the guitar name. They just don't.
No, not to the name.
Which was really strange because Gibson did for a while. Like you would go on their site and they would have everything under 2016 models, and you'd go, wait, what?
Right. And when you think about it, they made sweeping changes every year. It wasn't just, okay, we got these colors. They changed the pickups. They changed what they were using for tuners. They changed.
And some of that, some of that was them like scared shitless because they were losing money hand over fist. And they were trying to figure out what the customers really wanted. Instead of actually going and doing focus groups and talking to guitar players, they just said, "We'll just make a bunch of shit and see what sticks."
Well, and Fender made similar boo-boos in the 70s. Now, I don't know why Gibson couldn't learn from Fender's 70s mistakes, but
it's not the same company. FMIC is different than CBS.
Yeah. Well, with CBS, but the Fender did the same thing. Now, if you look though, that's what you just said about Fender and the fact that the standard is the yardstick.
Was the yardstick.
What's the yardstick? Yeah, was the yardstick. I can tell you this right now. So I watch people come into Guitar Center and they'll say, I want American Standard. And you know what they say? Well, they still make it, but it's called this now. You know what the people are saying? Not interested. Not interested. And it's like, because it's unfortunate, but you can't tell somebody that new Coke and old Coke is the same.
What's the feedback from not being interested? Because I can provide some feedback for you on that it's pretty obvious. I'm sure you're probably guessing where I'm going with this, but
yeah, go ahead.
All right. So I saw, wasn't today, it was like a week or two ago. A guitar shop, same question, I have an American Standard. I'm looking for something that's similar. I'd like to have a second guitar, and they're like, well, they don't make the American Standard line anymore. And they said they transitioned that line and just basically renamed it. And it's, the professional, whatever, I forget what the model is, but anyway, he goes in and so they go over, they look at it and he goes, this is quite a bit more expensive than what I paid for my American Standard. Now, couple of things. You don't know how long ago he bought his American Standard. It could be 5 years ago.
That's right.
They 10 years ago,
20 years
like, all right. So in 2003, do you know what the price for the American Standard was? $750.
$700.
What's the price now? $1,500.
$1,500.
So stop and think about it. They've doubled in price in 20 years.
Yeah.
Now that's not necessarily a bad thing because they've improved the quality too. But I think that's the bigger shock to people that go in. Because if you're like, let's say if you go in, you're like, I'm going to buy an American Standard, right? If you're not a gear guy, right, or a gear gal, whatever, whatever floats your boat in between, you go into the store and you have this guitar at home and it's an American Standard, Fender's always produced an American Standard, and then all of a sudden you have this shock of talking to the person and finding out they're not producing that line anymore and it's now called this, and then they take you and they show you the price. you don't go into guitar stores every day. That's $750 versus $1,500 doesn't make any sense to you. So you
That's right.
panic. And then what do? And I think Fender positioned themselves on this way for a reason. You grab the Performer series,
I was just going
which
to
is
say,
just as good as that $750 American Standard you have.
all right. I was going to say you grab a Performer, or the fact is, I think that they've hurt themselves with these. You grab the new Ventura series, or even worse, I say worse for Fender, you grab yourself a Classic Vibe.
Yeah.
And the new Classic Vibes are supposedly even better than the old Classic Vibes. And the Classic Vibes, a lot of people rage about the Classic Vibe.
I wonder if the current Classic Vibe, if their profit margins are not so good on that guitar, that they're willing to cannibalize sales on the rest of the line. I wonder, because they raised the price on them, I think it was 3 years ago, by $100.
Yeah.
And
Classic Vibes.
Well, I think basically the whole Squier line, right?
And they come up another little bit, not a bunch, but a little bit, and they've said, "Oh, look at this! We've made all these improvements to the Classic Vibes."
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that the Squier, the whole stigma against the Squier name and logo is kind of disappeared. And funny how that happened, because I know as little as 10 years ago, people were like, Squier, spit on the ground, it's just not that way anymore. I think if you're going to modify a guitar, like if you want to just buy a neck and a body and you want to get a solid neck and a solid body, I think Squier's the way to go. I don't even think I would I don't think I would bother to buy a Fender. And they've got some interesting model selection right now. I mean, I'm looking at their website as I'm talking to you. I'm not a big fan of everything they do. I think the Affinity series now is actually decent. I do like the Classic Vibe 70s. I played one of those today, in fact. And I'm not usually a fan of the big headstock guitars, but the one I played was pretty good. And of course, they're doing the Indian Laurel on that. I actually wanted to check because I wasn't sure what fingerboard material they were using. But I'm looking here, and they've got so many models in that line. I mean, they got to be making hand over fist on these things. They got it down to a science on how to produce guitars in, I think these are coming out of China, that are worth owning for like little amounts of money. I mean, honestly, dude, and almost the whole line is available in Lefty. It looks like, that's unheard of, Do they even have a contemporary active Strat with a Floyd? Call me when they get 7-string models. I'll be ready.
I don't know if Fender will ever do a 7.
They have.
I mean, I think they tried.
They have.
Yeah, a while back.
They had the Showman.
Yep.
So I don't know. So I think this is my takeaway from looking at Fender models, even just looking at the Squier series. Fender has too many models. It's had too many models for a really long time. Same thing as with Gibson. Like when you got people coming in and they're confused at what they're looking at when they're looking at your brand.
When they're looking at a standard, the Les Paul standard was the standard. But then all of a sudden it was, well, do you want a standard with this? Do you want a standard with that? Do you want Birchbarker Pros? Do you want what was it? The 480T, 490T? Do you want to it's like, well, can't I just get a Fender, or a Les Paul standard? And you didn't know from year to year what you were going to get with it. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of times, I mean, you look at it, you go, oh, okay, now I got to figure out what year that was and what pickups were in it when they got it. I got to find out what tuners were on it, so on and so forth. Right now, Fender has got you've got the Vintera. You've got you just did Squier. You've got Squier. You've got obviously the two low ends. You got the Bullet and the Affinity, but then you've got the Classic Vibes. You've got the Contemporary. There's another one. The Player series are Mexican made,
now you're
right?
talking about, so that's the thing. Like you're not even halfway through the line, dude. When you look at their artist line, 1, 2, 3, 4,
Oh
5,
my
6, 7,
God.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 32 different models in one series, right? And not only that, but they're like super specific guitars. Like here's a Lincoln Brewster Stratocaster. Here's a Britt Daniel Telly, right? Here's, why is this Fender EOB Sustainer Stratocaster? EOB.
Now the flame top Stratocaster.
Yeah, it's just getting out of hand. Like some of these they should just be special runs. They shouldn't even be like, this is a different model. This is the same model as this other one, but it's just a different. Now, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to say this, and I know we got Fender fans in the group, and I know we got Fender fans that listen to other podcasts and stuff that will listen to ours at some point. Look, I'm a Fender guy at heart. I've owned Fender guitars. I've owned many Fender guitars. Jim owns several right now. I'm not saying the company's doing everything wrong. I'm just saying that at some point, this is going to come knocking, and they're going to have to start reducing
they gotta
their
say,
line.
all right.
Because it's getting crazy.
Yeah, they got to say, all right, that's enough. Yeah. Because, I mean, I'm looking at Fender's site right now, and, just at the front page, and now they're coming out with flame tops and thin lines inside the Fender Rarities collection. I want a thin line. I really do. But I don't want to pay through the nose for a thin line. I just want a thin line. I don't need it to be a rare top or a flame top or whatever. I just want a thin line Telecaster. But when I look for a thin line Telecaster, I'm looking either classic Vive or I've got to jump all the way up to the Elite. I've got nothing in between anymore because otherwise I got to get 4 freaking controls. I want 2 controls. I want a Telecaster, not a freaking Les Paul. I want a Telecaster.
Can I say something? So I just noticed that they're still doing the mod shop, which is kind of surprising to me.
That's cool
because I've never met a person who's bought a guitar through the mod shop.
Nope. Most people I know don't even know.
Yeah, so I'm looking here. They offer you a couple of neck choices, but there's no compound radius neck available for. That's really messed up.
What?
Yeah, no compound radius neck
in the mod.
They're 9.5-inch radius.
Oh, Jesus.
They're advertising now. They're doing roasted maple.
Yeah, they're doing roasted maple now, and they're putting roasted maple on the. Yeah, I know everybody's doing it, and they're putting it. Oh, that was the other thing with the PRS 2020s, putting roasted maple on the imports, the SEs. Yeah. So some of the SEs are going to wind up with roasted maple. But anyway, coming back to this, I'm looking just without going under anything else. This is the list of guitars that Fender makes without going into the fact that every one of them pretty much has all these lines: Strat, Tele, Acoustasonic, Jaguar, Jazzmaster, Duosonic, Mustang. So if you look at that, you've got all your Squier models of those and all of your Fender import line from Mexico from those, and then all the Fender I go into Guitar Center, I'm like, holy crap. And they can't possibly, the problem is you see one online, you go, wow, I really want to try that guitar. I want it in that color. The stores couldn't possibly carry the line. You would have a store full of Fenders.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not a surprise to me. I mean, that sounds about par for the course for them.
I mean, the Strat, just in the ones that are not in the Squier line, you've got the Mod Shop, of course. You got the American Professional, the American Original, the American Elite, the American Performer. Come on. The Vintera, which is new. The Deluxe.
The Vintera is arguably new because they had they used to have the Timeline series or whatever before.
Yeah. Now they're calling it Vintera. Anyway, the Vintera, the Deluxe, the Artist, and the Player. And each one of those, under those, has models. So if you went to, let's say you said, oh, you know what? I want to look at an Elite. Well, Elite comes in several different forms. You've got the, and I mean, holy smoke, these rarities are $2,500. Anyway, the Elite. Oh, now they got a 50s. Oh my God, that's not even listed. So here's some more that aren't even listed in that list at the top. I mean, it's just crazy. So if I go to the Elite, I can get an SSS or an HSS, right? I mean, it's just crazy.
I don't know. I think honestly, I think they're basically running a custom shop right now, and like they just have a you want a model that has a 9.5-inch radius, a thick C neck, and Stratocaster pickups and a Stratocaster body. Like we got this Strat over here that does exactly that. And then, I want one with roasted maple. We have this one over here that has that. You know, it's like, it's to the point where it's almost like they offer so many models that you could just find what you need. But the problem is if you're everything to all people, then it's very hard to turn a profit.
So the Elite Strat, and this is the thing that gets to me. So the Elite Strat comes in 3 colors, but none of them come without an ebony fretboard. So you have to get an Elite Strat HSS to get a maple fretboard. They don't even make a maple fretboard of the Elite SSS.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yep. Yeah, and I know that some color combinations, they don't do a maple fretboard with that color combination. So you can go within the line and find a color combination.
Well, and the funny thing is, if you look at the picture of their American Elite Stratocaster on their website, it has the worst ebony board I've ever seen.
I know, but that one at least has okay with the 9.5 to 14-inch compound
I want to preface this. I'm okay with streaked ebony, but there are a lot of people who like if it's ebony, it needs to be pitch black.
It needs to be bright, dark, all the way through. And if you're going to take a picture of one, find one that's dark.
The other thing I think holds Fender back, when I pick up one like in the store or whatever, they always have the crappiest strings on them because they have that Fender set of strings that just corrodes. Like before you even take it out of the box, it's got to be nasty. And the first thing I do when I buy like a Fender is I'll throw another set of strings on it, and then it usually makes them 100% better because they don't like any guitar with crap strings sounds like crap and it plays like crap.
So the Elites have come down in price. They're $17.49. They were $19.99.
I wonder if they dropped the price because they weren't selling well. If it's not that there's new models coming, because I thought they were going to announce new models. That was the rumor, but I'll bet you they've lowered the price because they weren't selling well at $2,000.
Yep, and the HSS is at $16.
The thing is, I picked up an Elite, and I thought, yeah, I mean, it's a $2,000 Stratocaster. It plays, it bridges the gap between what used to be the American standard and the custom shop stuff.
Yep.
So I've owned,
and they do make.
I've owned. Let's go back and let's talk about my trajectory here. I've owned a Stevie Ray Vaughan Strat. I have a Jimmy Vaughan Strat right now. I've had that guitar for almost 20 years. I had an American Standard Strat. I've had a Squier Telecaster. I mean, Fender's gotten their money from me over the years. I bought probably half dozen or more guitars from them. And they were all bought new, I think. The Stevie Ray Vaughan Strat was not new when I bought it. Yeah.
I've bought an American Standard, the Deluxe Strat, and
Deluxe Telly.
New, and the Deluxe Telly. The one that's my son's here, the red one,
used.
That's his, but that was used. And the Squier Bullet was broken, or not?
Yeah, it was damaged.
I'm sorry, the Infinity was damaged. It's not broken. Nothing wrong with it. Honestly,
is that where your pickups are going?
Yeah, I got to cut that pickup out. I forgot to do that this week. I got to send that off tomorrow, or not tomorrow, but Tuesday.
It shouldn't take very long. You probably have.
I'll send that off
tomorrow's Columbus.
It'll take 2 days. Yeah, it'll take 2 days to get there.
Columbus Day for everybody.
Yeah, Columbus Day. Yeah, and we don't. Although I have the day off, and I will take the day off, I'm not celebrating Columbus Day. I'm just happy to have a free day off.
It is Indigenous Peoples Day.
It is Indigenous Peoples Day, and I will celebrate it as such.
I will celebrate it as a day in our history that was important.
That's right. I have no idea why it was important, because It was October
Yes,
14th.
many varying accounts as to why this day is important.
Many things.
Some people will say that the man that originated, or that the holiday originated about, is an evil bastard who did some awful things.
I would probably agree.
Some would also say that the historical record shows that he was under threat of death in order to do some of those things. So, I don't think anybody can look at a time period in our history that is quite as tumultuous as some of the things that were going on in the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, and pretend like, you know, everybody was good people. Like, I will say that the indigenous peoples tend to be much better than those that you know, had the word conquistador attached to their name.
Not exactly.
Yeah. So, celebrate as you see fit. You know.
That's right.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm
not Irish, but if the bar has a break on the beer because it's got green coloring, and
neither of the big two right now is trying to get my business. And
what's that? You're talking about Fender?
I mean, they're just not trying to produce products I want. Fender.
Well, so I've been interested in the American Performer.
But yeah,
for a
but
while.
Still playing. You're playing six strings, and
but the thing is, but I like my current one. So the only reason I would get a Performer is because I would say, "Oh, I want a single square."
Well, let me ask you. Let me ask you to put a hat on, a hat of a different player, and then try to determine which company you would go to out of the big two, right? Yeah,
out of the big two.
So if you're gonna play gent, like genty style metal, who makes the guitar for you?
Neither of them.
That's right.
Neither of them.
And that's a whole part of the market that they're not even talking about, which is growing.
Yeah, it is.
As much as
in players, in learners, so many young players that want to play that style of music. I couldn't play it if I wanted to. I have to. My hats are off to it.
And it's not about like trying to do it, but I'm just saying, like, they don't produce a guitar for that market.
Nope. Not in the least.
You could probably make the argument that Fender has like the Jim Root, like the Slipknot stuff, and I think there's some genre crossover compatibility there, but I don't think it's firmly geared at the gent kids. And
no, I don't think I don't think you could call Jim Root gent.
No, but I'm saying, will it gent? Yeah, sure. I mean,
sure.
But again, those guitars don't have like the way I look at gent is like extended range, number one. Lots of 7 and 8 string guitars in gent music, and you're gonna find headless guitars usually for companies that are they'll have a headless model. It won't necessarily be the whole thing they do. Floyd Roses, Evertunes.
Okay, so an exciting thing that Agnesi didn't say, but he was asked and said he couldn't say anything. Hint, hint, wink, wink. During his recent interview with the captain, was Steinberger.
Yeah,
did I say it right?
Steinberger's coming back. That's pretty much a done deal at this point.
I think that is going to be their shot across the bow of Strandberg, who kind of took Steinberger's thing.
And to your point, in the Fender wheelhouse of companies, there's Charvel. And now Charvel's not producing 7 strings, but there's Jackson, right? And that's that's definitely firmly, got some guitars that are in that camp. So if you go into the extension of brands, it's a different thing. And I think I'm more excited about Steinberger and Kramer. I was just going to say Kramer as well, but I'm more excited about Steinberger because obviously my heart, goes out to the headless guitar. But I think we're finally going to see them do something with the Steinberger patents. Nobody really liked the broom handle guitars, right? Nobody liked the brooms.
No,
I'm sure there's like a niche market for those, which is why the Music Yo thing happened, and like they were selling all the Spirit line of guitars and all that. But I could totally see them coming back with the Steinberger style of trans trem, all the because you need a company like Gibson to back it.
Nope. And nobody else is doing that trans trem.
Actually, I think the patent's expired on that. But
As
the
a-
problem is you need a string manufacturer to sign on with you. And in order for that to work, you got to be a company like Gibson who can go to D'Addario and say, look, we will pay you X amount of dollars to
Right.
manufacture these strings for us. And put your name,
Right.
and you can
'Cause
put
you
your
do
name
have-
on them because then it looks like it comes from a third party. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And for
I
them,
do.
you know, if you want a trans-trim equipped guitar, yes, great. But I could see them even trying to come up with something that kind of competes with the Evertune, that is headless. And because that's kind of the Gibson thing, right? Is like the stop tail bridge, no vibrato bar or anything like that. But the trans-trim is probably their single biggest asset with Steinberger. They did have that one, was it called the Synapse or the XT or something? They did have a Steinberger with a trans-trim that Gibson was producing, but it was coming from Korea, I think. And it was, I played one. It's a damn good guitar.
I couldn't get used to, like you said, the broomstick. I couldn't get used to a guitar without a body.
Yeah, and this had body. The one I'm talking about did. And they produce guitars with bodies too. So I could just see them getting back into the market and coming up with the Strandberg, you know, alike. That's more traditional, more kind of like what you would expect from like a Stratocaster or something like that. And yet suitably modern to capture new players' interest.
Yeah, and what's funny is, so you mentioned D'Addario, but I think it was Ernie Ball that was making their strings before. But regardless, all that Gibson's got to do is say, "Hey guys, remember those Ernie Balls that you were making before?
Yeah.
Just
It was Labella actually that was making the double ball ends.
Dust.
Yeah.
Was it? It was Labella. That's
Labella's
right, Labella.
damn near non-existent today.
Yep. But you could go, okay, dust off the old gear, old equipment, and pump those things out.
And then again comes to the fact that like they have to decide whether they want to do trans trims or not. And maybe the trans trim is like a modern model that you'd have to pay extra money to get one, and then you could get the double ball and string thing going.
What was it? 3 or 4 tunings, right?
I believe you could drop it down at a perfect fifth, and it could hold tuning all the way down to a perfect fifth, and you would just lock the bar in place, and suddenly you were in a different tuning. It was like having a capo. Which to me, since it went down, and I think it also went up, you could adjust it so you could go 3 steps up or like 3 steps down. That's a genter's dream right there. Could you imagine? Like, I would be so thrilled if I could lock my tuning, like, you know, if I have a 7 string with a, you know, low B and I could lock it down to an A, you know.
Yeah.
Mid-song.
You could do it mid-song.
I mean, there was a couple of Van Halen tunes that got used on, which we probably should segue. If you're reading the news, or if you're listening to the news, something we've talked about on the show before. Apparently Eddie has cancer again, or never didn't have cancer, or whatever. Apparently he's been going to Germany for treatment for a really long time. And I just want to remind people, this is me tooting my own horn. I've been suspect of this for a very long time, because the kinds of cancer that they were talking about him having, and some of the things that he had said about his health and the way he had appeared in interviews and things, I didn't think he was over it. But I think that he's found a way to live with it and whatever. So then, of course, David Lee Roth does that thing where he says, we're done. Like, Van Halen's done. We're not touring anymore or whatever. And yet everybody's starting to wonder about Eddie's health.
Well, it's a possibility. I mean, Valerie Bertinelli went with him. Let's face it, they have not been a thing for a long time.
Is he still using metal guitar picks? Does anybody know? Is he still licking the guitar pick? Is that still a thing? I was having an interesting conversation with one of our show listeners, and we talked in the last show about not worshiping your heroes, like to the point where you become them, or playing guitar for the wrong reasons, playing the guitar to be someone else. I want to kind of speak to that for a minute and say like Eddie Van Halen he has had some critical contributions to guitar. He brought tapping to the mainstream. He obviously wrote some of like the most well-known riffs in the 1980s. Some of the best synth hooks have come out of Van Halen's hands as well. And his brother is, you know, totally underrated talent. And he's not underrated. Like, everybody knows that Eddie can play. I'm not going to be the guy that pretends like Eddie's one of the big three, because I know there are people that said like Clapton, Hendrix, and Eddie Van Halen are the top three. Two of those guys I don't like very much, and I think you know which one I love. So, the reason why I say that is because it's like, well, everybody has their different things, right? You hear about this news about Eddie. Yeah, I mean, I know Eddie's a controversial figure in music, right? And whether you know this or not, like Eddie's a
Yep.
jerk, okay? He's been a jerk to a lot of people over the years and has, I mean, all right, so if one story had come out, that would be one thing. If 5 stories had come out, that had been one thing. But the thing is, everybody who's had a working relationship in some way can tell you a dozen stories about Eddie being a jerk. And when you hear people that worked with him on the line over at PV talk about him coming in and literally picking up guitars and throwing them across the room and then being like, it's not in tune, it's not good enough. First off, you're not quality control. Second off, your name's attached to the guitar, but that doesn't entitle you to like throw a guitar across the room and act like a buffoon. Belittle
Yep.
employees. That's honestly, if I'd been running that company and I had a client come in and talk to my employees that way, I would have terminated the relationship with that person immediately, because you can't have that. That's a liability for you as an owner of a company, and that's not me as a millennial talking. That is literally a liability that faces all companies. If you have somebody call up and harass your people on the phone, albeit sexually or to just harass them, like make them feel uncomfortable and stuff, you can get prosecuted, sued, and whatever else for that. I mean, there's laws against that. So I hear about that going on. I'm like, man, must have been a different time over at PV when they let Eddie behave that way. And
Yep.
I've taken the summation of all these stories and I go, I know that people love Eddie, and like it's going to be a sad moment when he dies, if he dies anytime soon. He will
Yep.
die. Everyone's going to die eventually, right? And when he passes, like it's going to be kind of like the Hendrix moment. Everybody's going to stop and reflect upon all his playing, and all his records are going to go to number one again. The band's records are going to go to number one again, and it'll be a big deal. But I'm going to be the guy in the back of the room, unfortunately, who's probably sitting there kind of like, yeah, he was really good, and I'm really sad that he's gone, and I really, my heart goes out to his family and all the people that needed him for support, his employees and everything. But
Yep.
I mean, the way he's treated people, it's hard to like see him as a person anymore, and less of a machine. Now, when he was younger, he did some great interviews, and he was a nice guy, and he seemed to be like really cordial, and he was having a good time. He was obviously a young dude and like had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, but he seemed like a good dude in those interviews. But when he does an interview with Rolling Stone, where he takes time out to trash Taylor Swift, who he clearly hadn't even listened to the record, and was just like, well, I'm beyond that. Like, what are you on? Like, what planet are you on? Let me remind you of how your last record performed and the record before that. It's like, dude, at some point you have to reflect on your career and go, you know what? I'm done and over with. Like, I kind of messed it up. And they had a good run. He can't complain. I mean, how many number one records, how many number one singles, like how many tours, how many, you think about, very few bands have had the success that Van Halen did. You can't be mad when you put out Van Halen 3. Is that what the Balance record or whatever, the one with Gary Cherone? That wasn't it like a self-titled thing again?
Ugh.
And
Yes.
like nobody likes that record. I say that there are people out there that actually do like that record, but the vast majority of Van Halen fans are like, what were they thinking? And then you got to kind of like take a step back and realize, they did the greatest hits compilation where they did the 2 or 3 songs that are on it. And remember, they had David Lee Roth come into the studio to do Humans Being and one of the other songs.
Yep.
And then one of them ended up on the Twister soundtrack. And that best of compilation went platinum, like multi-platinum. But then I do too.
I have it.
And then after that, they did that one album with, I think it was David Lee Roth, right? They did another record with DLR. And
DLR, yep.
it was bad. like really bad. And I think the only reason they actually did that record, I'm gonna speculate, was because Eddie had signed new equipment deals. He had just moved to Fender. He was, and remember they
Oh
did a
yeah,
tour
yeah.
too, and I think that was all to drive sales of equipment. I don't think their heart
Yep.
was in it. I don't think their mind was in it. And Alex has got deals too. I mean, he's got endorsements. I don't think Alex. I always got the feeling that Alex was a lot more reserved with his money and his behavior, and so
Yep.
when things started to like get really bad for Eddie in the early '90s, and he started kind of going off the deep end with his health and all that stuff. Like, I think Alex was doing really well for himself. And so he's not as concerned about it, but that band is run by Eddie. Like, it's really clear. Eddie says, let's go tour. Everybody gets on board.
Yep.
And I really wonder if like the equipment sales is really that much of his income that he just, that's it now.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Well, look at how hard he's run that business, right? He was with Sterling Ball or Ernie Ball, right? And then
Yep.
that under Music Man, which was a pretty good deal from by all accounts. People who have kind of come out and talked about it today, it was a really good endorsement deal, especially for that time. There weren't artist guitars at that time, right? That was
Right.
that they did exist, but it was like, here Kramer has this guitar, and then they put it in somebody's hands, and they're like, that's this model now. But he was a guy that literally designed his model. He does that, and then he goes and he goes to Peavey because things didn't work out Ernie Ball for whatever reason, which I've heard there are personal reasons for that. He goes to Peavey. He has a tumultuous time over there, and then as soon as he can get out of that deal, he goes over to Fender. And it's funny because in the course of this, like, he started out and he was endorsing guitars. Actually, I take it back. His first endorsement was the Bridges, the Floyd Rose. Then it was the guitars. Starting with Kramer, actually, because he was endorsing Kramer. And then when he realized that he could make more money by designing his own guitar, he took his deal and that's when he went to Ernie Ball. So this guy's had a long, extensive career of gear endorsements. And
Yep. Ernie Ball, Peavey.
And he's done a lot of it first too, right?
Okay.
Like, I'm sure as far as I know, he is the first signature amp holder with the 5150. And then they had the 5152, which both of those amps are still highly sought after, the Peaveys. And then they have the 5153 now, which people like. And they have several variants of the 5153 now. I would not be surprised if in the next couple of years we don't see 5154 with an accompanying tour if he is not sick. So I guess what I'm getting at is Eddie's got a lot of skin in the game. And because of that, his business is very public. So I don't know who this dude really is behind the scenes, but it really seems like he's out of touch with reality, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. He seems like a guy that's highly medicated, and I think a lot of these rumors kind of add up. But we think about this. And the original conversation was, do we worship these people when they pass? Like, it's perfectly acceptable to go download a record, revisit the root of, your thing with Eddie Van Halen or whatever, and to do all those things. I think it's when you cross over into, like, you feel as sad as his family does because you lost a part of your life. And it's like, well, no, because the music's still there. Like, the individual is still there in some sense. Which I know, Jim, you may feel differently about this. But I'm like, I still feel like I'll be the guy in the back of the room that's like, yeah, I loved Eddie's music, and like, I just don't know what kind of a person he was, and I'm not going to pretend like I did.
Right. Well, no, I mean, so when we lost, I was over Cream's music a long time ago.
Ginger did a lot of things outside of Cream too. But the funny thing about it is that he is also a guy that is known for being a complete jackass.
Yeah. But for me, I didn't. That didn't really hit me that hard. There were only two musicians that have ever really struck me when we lost them because of but I didn't feel like family. I didn't bawl for days. But John Lennon, and the only reason I felt so sad about John Lennon was because of everything that was surrounding the way he died.
Yeah, I mean,
that was just a sad death overall. Now people die sad deaths all day. People can tell you that, but they don't get in
but
the news.
I'll say a band like
so.
the Beatles that led a cultural revolution, because like them or not, right? The Beatles was the British invasion for all intents and purposes for most people. There may have been into other bands like Herman's Hermits and things like that as well, but the Beatles was the British invasion band, and everybody had a Beatles record, right? And they all had a favorite song. And when you find out, like, he not only did this person pass, it wasn't like John got in a car accident or a plane crash like John Denver. He was killed. Like, that's pretty messed up. That's like Dime getting shot, right? I mean,
yep. And that was the other one I was going to mention. So Dime, losing Dime when the way we did. I mean, I was not the world's biggest fan of Pantera, but to see a guy doing that stuff, what he loves. John Lennon was coming home from the studio. Dime was on stage playing, and somebody shot him.
I can remember, like, some people talk about remembering 9/11, like where they were when it happened, or the Kennedy assassination. Yeah. I can remember where I was when I heard that Dimebag Darrell had died on stage. And like, so I want to preface that a little bit, because I heard it the night it happened, right? I was actually awake, and it was like 1:00 in the morning, and it was on CNN. Yep. And I can remember thinking, like, I was never, in fact, I'll come out and say it. I had a lot of magazines back then. Because there wasn't the internet like it is today. So I was buying Guitar World religiously. And every issue, there was something going on with Dime or Zakk Wylde or both of them. Yep. Right. And I'm like, well, clearly these are the only two guitar heroes that anybody cares about now, which actually kind of turned me off to those magazines.
Fact, what's funny is you mentioned that I was reading one with the cover of those two guys, Zakk and Dime, on the cover. I still have it.
You do.
They're in camo.
And the implication was they were going to do a record with Eddie Van Halen. That was there
was all kinds of rumors they were going to do an album together, like you said, Eddie Van Halen. And so not a whole lot of people that Eddie Van Halen's going to go to a funeral and put his guitar in the hole and have it buried.
Yeah. So let's, what I wanted to get to, so when he died, right, when he passed, I remember, like, thinking, oh crap, it's the dude that I don't even like. But I can remember watching it and going, how awful would that be? Because I was playing out at that time. How awful would that be to be like playing a gig and have some guy come in who you don't even know, pull out a gun and try to shoot you, and then have like this like fight on stage, and then you get caught in the crossfire pretty much, and it would just be a nightmare. Like, it is a nightmare. He lived a nightmare that night, and then passed away because of it.
And then died.
And I think it's cool that we're talking about this, because there's some other stuff. There's some YouTube content I actually want to talk about. So if you put yourself in that position, did I mourn Dimebag Darrell? Hell yeah, I did. Hell yes, I did. And it wasn't just sympathy, because at that point I'm like, there's enough people that this is on CNN that actually cared about this dude's music. And it took me several years to be able to get into Pantera. It really did. I wasn't listening to Pantera probably until 4 or 5 years after his death. But it was, for me, it was a transformative experience, because I felt like the people that didn't discover Jimi Hendrix until after he'd passed. Like, it was on the news and they're like, oh, I better check this guy out because it's important enough that they're talking about it on the news.
Yep.
But at the same time, I also feel like the way that I grieve Dime is probably more consistent with the way that we probably should have, which is that this guy's the victim
Right.
of a heinously violent act and was
Yep.
really not inciting it at all. Like, he was not a violent dude at
that-
all.
Well, that's what I was about to get to. So the other side of the John Lennon and the Dimebag Darrell thing was, I never got to meet John Lennon,
Yeah.
right? But everything I heard about him and everybody I knew that did meet him said he was sweet. Was was a nice guy. He lived in upstate. Little did I know he didn't live too far
Yeah.
from me. And he was murdered. And he's a true pacifist. Now you take Dimebag. Yes, he was. I got to meet him. He was a drinker, and yeah, he did a little, pot here and there, and so on and so forth.
A
But
little.
let me tell you something. Everybody I knew, and when I did meet him, what a genuinely friendly and
He was
gregarious
super
individual
outgoing and
I
like,
met. Super, super nice.
and
super
he would
sweet.
give you the shirt off his back if he could.
And I only met him a couple weeks before he passing. That's what hit me. So I'm sitting here, I'm reading it. I'm talking to my wife, and I go, "Hi, that's the guy I met a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
and such and such." And she goes, "Oh, that's nice." And then she points at
Yeah,
the TV, and that just boom right to the chest. It was like somebody
Now-
just punched me. I just met the guy, just knew, wow, what
But-
a nice guy.
I don't think it's tragedy that's necessarily what's supposed to affect us. Like, when that stuff happens, I think it's just, I think certain situations deem certain action. Like, I'm sure.
Yep.
I just like, I didn't live through the Leonard Skinner crash. I didn't live through.
Yeah, I did.
I didn't
that
live
was a sad
through,
time.
John Denver dying in the plane crash. Like, I did live through the Stevie Ray Vaughan thing. I was too young to know what was going on.
Yep.
I mean, definitely, like, you do grieve these people because you are connected to them. And
Yeah.
in fact, like, I honestly, I don't play any Pantera tunes in my set, but I've played enough Pantera music at the house that, like, I kind of, it's like, it's a little strange to play it and think about it that way. Now, Jimi Hendrix died so long ago that when I'm playing Hendrix tunes live, like, it doesn't faze me. And partially because I feel like I'm keeping that music alive, but for the proximity of like having sat through someone's demise like that and heard about it on the news and just being like,
Yeah. So
could you imagine being in that
I
venue,
went
Jim?
through-
That would be even
No.
That would be even worse.
No.
I mean,
But it wasn't very far away. There was a couple of friends of mine and I that were talking about going over there.
yeah,
It was Connecticut, right?
No, that was Texas.
Or Rhode Island.
I thought he died.
I want to say it was
I'll look it up.
Connecticut or Rhode Island. It was Northeast.
Columbus, Ohio.
Ohio. That's right. It's the other way. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why I was thinking it was Texas.
Oh, I know what I was thinking of. The fire. That was a tragedy too. The whole
White
was it white
No,
White Lion? No.
Shark.
No, see, that's just
Shark
it. They
movie,
all
I
have.
forget what the name of them is. Great White. Great White.
Oh yeah, Great White. Great White. That was sad too. When the thing is that like when Hendrix died, I was 6, 7. Did he die in 70 or 7, or was he at
I
69?
was 19 when Dime went.
Yeah, so I was a kid but my family, there were a lot of members of my family that were like, man, we lost, and then of course, you look at like I remember losing George Harrison, and that was for me
big
that
deal
was a
to
big
me.
one.
I mean,
Traveling Wilburys, and of course
he's the
stuff he
only
did with
Beatle
the
that matters
Beatles
to me,
and-
frankly.
yeah, and yeah, kind of. But I think that the hardest thing is that when you see something on Facebook, somebody shares it and they're sad. They are probably genuinely sad. When David Bowie passed away, it didn't
do a whole lot to me.
strike me.
That's
not to say that I don't care about his family. I don't care.
his
about
record
I don't-
actually deeply affected me,
but-
though. The last record he did, more so,
Yeah.
specifically after his demise, because then it became clear what it was really about.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, his music really hit me when it was back Spiders from Mars and that type of thing. I mean, that was really my Bowie period, and that was when I stopped listening to him. Let's Dance. I was like, all right, he's gone disco. I'm done. Um, but you take that whole thing, we're going to lose our icons. I mean, some of us have lost our parents. I'm old enough that my father's passed away a long time ago, and my mother is older. The fact is that we're all mortal. We're all gonna pass, and as we look at the icons as we grew up, you didn't even get to know Zappa
No,
as Zappa. You never got to see him live. I did, and
no.
Zappa was a thing. I mean, we all sang the
Dude,
Don't Eat Me Won't Snow. We all
so
loved
many bands,
Joe's Garage,
so many
Catholic Girls,
bands
and
like that. I have no connection. Like even some of the bands I grew up with, the people died before I even realized like what death was, right? And
right,
I can remember
right,
like now I'm gonna date myself a little bit. I can remember when Kurt Cobain shot himself, and I didn't
right,
know what I mean at that time. Even though I was listening to music, like I didn't know Nirvana was like three out of the four songs on the radio that I was listening to at the time. Like,
right. Again, I'm not a huge Nirvana fan, but it
yeah,
was important music, and it spoke to bands that came after. Um, Kurt Cobain. It was a very sad
I guess
thing.
what I'm trying to say
You
is
know,
like you can separate the accomplishments of an individual from who the individual was,
right,
and the main thing is don't worship these people as gods. Like stop and realize they're actual people. They
right,
have flaws. It's
right,
not as though Christ is up on the cross. And I know that's a specifically
right,
Christian reference, but I mean we all have tragedy in religion. Um, that's
right,
a central tenet of a lot of religion. And so
right.
I'm just saying, like, we don't need to deify that. Okay, so nobody needs to when Eddie Van
No,
Halen dies go, he's the greatest that ever lived and all this stuff. Look, if you feel that way, that's one thing, but just understand that his music doesn't speak the same way to everybody else.
no, no. So it doesn't speak
Yeah,
at all to some people.
yeah, I
It
love
did
a
to
lot of it.
me. I mean, 1978 when Van Halen came out, I was 14, right? I mean, that's when that album hit, and everybody had to learn how to play Eruption, and it's just one of those things where when Eddie passes, here's why I won't feel. I'll feel sadness for his family, but why I won't feel any. Eddie Van Halen, just like Ginger Baker, hasn't put in anything that I cared about in years. John Lennon passed away. He had just put out As a matter of fact, he didn't even finish Double Fantasy. Double Fantasy was posthumous, if I remember right.
Yeah,
So,
I don't think. Yeah, I think it
um,
was some cautious completion.
but he had just finished it. He was putting it
Yeah,
together.
like
He
it
was
was written
finishing it.
and
That's where he was
they were
coming from
just
the studio.
finishing and finalizing performances and stuff. It was almost done. Well, so there's some
You
debate on
know,
that too, but yeah,
I'm just sitting here watching the wheel and all this other stuff, and I'm like, wow, he was putting out some great music. He was finally back to being
I feel
John
like
Lennon.
he was starting to get his grip on humanity and starting to get away from the drugs a little bit. Um,
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah, to do that, he went on a sailing. He went sailing and got in a sailboat and sailed away, and then came back to get straight. To help him get in touch with
um,
his life.
so I guess what I'm saying is like we're going to start losing a lot of people over the next couple of years. A lot of the older guys are starting to age out, and they're getting
Yep.
diagnosed with illnesses right and left. I'm surprised Pete Townsend is still with us, to be honest. Um,
And everybody keeps saying, "When is
Keith
Keith
Richards is
Richards?"
73 years old. I mean,
I know,
and he
he's
looks
not.
like he's
He's
103.
not young.
So, um,
Yeah.
uh, I mean, nobody wants to see these people go. And they have made contributions to our lives. But just remember, we don't know these people, and so
Right. And they don't really know you.
yeah, yeah.
When you think about it, they don't know
Unless they
you.
do, and then if they do, that's cool.
Um, Right.
then I'm
Right.
surprised you're listening
But
to
for
our
the most
podcast
part,
because you have more interesting
yeah.
stories to talk
Thanks for
about.
being here.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. I mean, I've had my brushes with some of these people, and you have too.
Yep.
I was thinking we were talking about Dime and his situation before his death, and the fact that there was the rumored Van Halen album. Do you know how many people have said
Yeah.
they were going to do an album with Dime, like right before his death? That just must have been the thing when he was drunk. Like that's all I could figure out was
I
like
think.
whenever he was drunk, I'm doing an album with
Yeah.
you. We're gonna get in the studio like as soon as I sober up, and we're gonna do a record. And
Yep.
the one that we should probably mention is Michelangelo Badio, and actually he's one of the few guys I think might have actually been telling the truth. Because there was
Yeah.
so I've seen some conversation with not necessarily Dime, but people who knew Dime who said that he was a big fan of the Hands Without Shadows thing, and like
Yep.
it had all the instructional material that Badio was known
A
for.
lot of people use. Yep.
A
A lot of
people
people
still
use
use
this
this
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah.
But the reason why I say this is because I wouldn't be surprised to find out if Zakk Wylde ever comes out and tells all. He might write a book at some point because Zach's getting up there. I suspect he'll want to tell the
Yeah.
story at some point.
Well, Zach's starting to feel his humanity. I saw him on a recent interview. I want to say
He's
it
a
was like
different
3 or
dude
4
than he
months
was
back.
20 years ago, for sure.
He's straight as an arrow now. He
coffee.
doesn't do any
And his coffee's good, by
drugs
the way.
and
He
stuff.
has he's a
and-
brand of
yep.
Death Wish. It's really good.
Yep.
But so this is what I was trying to say. That was like I could see Zach writing a book where he explains the story as like, oh, they approached Eddie, and then Eddie was like, yeah, I'd love to do it, but then Eddie's health gets in the way, or it just doesn't pan out, and so they're talking about who else
Yep.
they could work with, and then Dime throws out, well, I've been talking to Michelangelo Badio, kind of deal. And
Yeah.
that would have been an interesting, because he's a different player than the other two those guys are. And really, they're all very different players. Zakk Wylde is blues rock metal, right? And
For sure.
Dime is like country metal. I mean, and I mean that in the nicest possible way, because he uses a lot of like tritones and diminished stuff and like scales that you wouldn't normally find in rock music. Whereas Zakk Wylde's a lot more meat and potatoes. And then you've got like somebody like Michelangelo Badio, who's, just another
Classical.
another realm. And it would be an interesting take. There have been some other records like that before. I think Brian May did the Starship record, which was Brian May. Brian May, Eddie Van Halen, somebody else, wasn't it? I don't remember who else it was.
Yeah.
Be interesting to look that up. But they did a record together, and I mean, could you imagine Brian May and Eddie Van Halen getting in a room together? You have the reserved English gentleman.
I can't.
Who has a PhD with the guy that thinks that his guitar picks give him mouth cancer. I'm not making this up. I'm not. He claims that the guitar picks, they were made of metal, and then the same area on his tongue that was affected by cancer was where he used to store his picks when he was tabbing. Now, I mean, people put metal in their mouths all the time and don't get cancer. So what was special about these picks? Like, what was he doing to? Was he greasing them up?
Okay, so the people who were on there, believe it or not, this is some interesting folks. So it was Brian May. It was Brian May and friends, consisting of May, guitarist Eddie Van Halen, drummer Alan Gratzer. He's from REO Speedwagon. I thought that was interesting. Phil Chen, who played bass for Jeff Beck and Rod Stewart, and Fred Mendel, keyboardist for a lot of different people, and Roger Taylor.
Yeah.
Of course, that kind of makes sense. It was not meant for the tapes to be released. They had minimal mixing.
And I've heard it, and you could tell.
It was Starfleet. Yeah, the thing was called Starfleet.
I wonder if they got Gene Roddenberry's permission. Anyway.
Interesting.
So the other article that I alluded to in the Facebook group the other day was Neil Schoen's revelation about how he gets his guitars to play their best. and that is his suggestion that he uses salami grease on the neck. Italian salami grease.
I wonder how many freaking idiots actually believe that.
And that on top of that, he says he was inspired to do so by the late great jazz guitar legend Wes Montgomery. Now,
I don't know.
He says this on Twitter, right? And he's got the winky smiley face on there, emoticon, whatever.
Yeah.
And I just kind of think, like, wait a minute, like that winky face means he's pulling a joke. Why did somebody report this as an actual fact?
How many people are sitting there going,
I got some salami in the kitchen. That might work. But if you know anything about salami, salami grease is not going to make it more slippery. It's not.
Exactly. It's going to make it more sticky.
And
that's why he did the winky face.
All the vegan Neil Schoen fans just lost their effing minds. What do you mean you use salami grease? There's barely any meat in these gym mats.
Oh my God. That's just proof that there's no line that he won't cross.
Can we talk about how many times he's been married?
Oh my God.
Gosh, sometimes it's really fun to look up information about celebrities especially music celebrities, because they're not. So for whatever reason, movie stars, they get followed around. You hear about everything they've ever done, right? But music people, you don't know that they've been married 6 times or 5 times, like Neil Schoen. And it's well, something's not working there, clearly. And many of these marriages actually lasted a significant amount of time. He was married from 76 to 86, 93 to 99. Wait a minute. 76 to 86, 87 to 92, 93 to 99, 01 to 08, and he's currently married since 2013. So if you stop and think about that, it's not that he obviously had consistency to these marriages, but they don't last more than 10 years. You know, like his time in Santana's band. It didn't last more than 10 years.
Oh, you mean his band?
Well,
he allowed Santana to play?
He tried to get Santana moved out of the band, and apparently that's what he does in his marriages too. Oh my God.
He's I'm the most important person in this marriage.
I was sitting in an open mic with the host, and I won't say what open mic, and I won't say what host, but we were talking about Neil Schoen, and I was like, did you know he tried to get Santana thrown out of his own band? And he's like, wait, he was in Santana's band? And I was like, yeah, he's 16 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, if you watch the original video for Black Magic Woman,
yeah, he's there.
You can't miss him. He's there. You cannot miss him. He's got a big fro, and he's playing guitar. But he's there. You can see him playing his day.
I've wondered whether he actually that's the Woodstock performance though, right?
I don't know if that's.
He would have been old enough.
I'm not sure when the video was taken.
At Woodstock, he's 15.
Oh no, yeah, I can believe that. I'm just saying that I don't know if that's the one or when it was, but I know that he was in there.
So no, I don't think he was in the band yet. He started in the Santana 3. He was on Caravanserai and Santana 4. But I think he was a member of the touring band.
Yeah.
So I think he actually was playing with him before that.
He was, but I think it was in the Bay Area.
Well, let's stop and think about that, though. So if he was in Santana's band when he's 15, 16 years old. So 1970, his Santana 3, the first record he's on, right, is 1971. Santana's well established at this point.
Yep.
Woodstock has happened. He's had a very successful world tour. And now he's going on to do the next record, which I forget what the next one was after. Because I believe he was touring on Santana, the first self-titled. So it's probably Santana 2, obviously. And then he joins the band, and then he tries to usurp Carlos Santana. What?
Yeah.
I mean, how is that even the thing?
So let's see. Santana. I'm just looking for the video. the original video. Yep, there it is. So 1971. As a matter of fact, the what do you call it? The not icon, but the thing they're using to show the song, Santana Black Magic Woman, 1971, released 1968. There's shown playing a gold top Les Paul with P90s. You can see him plain as day with big old mutton chop. What do you call it? So yeah, he was definitely on there. So he's in the video. This video. Let me see if I can get this open a new tab. I don't want to actually hear it. Yep, as a matter of fact, the first person you see in the video is Sean walking up to his pedal board.
If you're not familiar, because we've talked about this on the show before, like the whole usurping of Carlos Santana, that whole story. So Journey, the original incarnation of Journey, which is not the popular incarnation of Journey, is made up of ex Carlos Santana band members. And you know, and the funny thing is, so when that happened, Santana, I think it was after Santana. It was before Abraxas, wasn't it? So let's think about that for a minute. Santana's about to record his masterwork, which is Abraxas, right?
That's right, Abraxas.
And they run off with all the other band members. And then that like frees Carlos up, like all the cosmic energy comes together. He gets a new band together, and then he does Abraxas. Like that says something right there.
Because I think it was the keyboard player, Sean, and was it the drummer? I want to say it was the keyboard player, the drummer, and Sean, but I know it was 3 members.
Yeah, and Carlos's band was not a big band at that time. I mean, now he tours. He's got like 20 guys on stage with him. It's ridiculous. But there's like 2 guitar players or 3 guitar players, a bass player, 2 percussionists, and a drummer, or 2 drummers, and then like 2 keyboard players. It's pretty crazy. Carlos is a legend, obviously, and I think Carlos's passing will be just as important as Eddie Van Halen's, and for a lot of people probably even more so.
Yep.
You know what?
Carlos.
This is the guy I was thinking of. The one that affected me when I was a kid, who died, and I still am not like super familiar with their music, but Jerry Garcia. And I'm not like neither Jim nor I are huge Grateful Dead fans. But with the legion of people who are, that was a big deal. Okay.
Yeah.
That was a great big deal. So just wanted to throw that one out there. That was another major one we've lost in the last 30 years that was like life-changing for a lot of people.
Yep. Oh, guess what guitar Santana's playing in this video?
PRS. Oh no, he's got his SG, right?
It's a Les Paul.
Oh, is it?
It's not even an SG. I know he played an SG a lot.
He only played SGs. Like he played SGs for a while, then he switched over to Les Pauls, and he didn't like them because they were too heavy. Then he went back to SGs, and then he went to Yamaha, and he was playing what is now the Revstar.
Yeah.
So, and he played those for a long time.
He didn't play PRSs until what? The late 80s,
Yeah, it was like late 80s. But he's honestly, he's single-handedly credited with like finding PRS an audience.
Oh yeah.
Because
the other artists weren't really.
I mean, they were all playing custom 22s and 24s. Like when his guitar came out, and it was a true totally double cutaway Les Paul, people were like, "Wow, that's something we haven't seen in a long time." Because the last time they did that was like a Les Paul Jr. double cut. Yep. And then if you remember, Gibson did a string of Les Paul double cuts in the 90s. I've actually been tempted to pick one up if I see one somewhere. I think those are cool guitars.
Oh yeah.
I think the Les Paul is I like symmetrical cutaways. So
yeah. All right. So
yeah, we got 2 hours.
We're just over 2 hours.
If you don't like this episode, send me a message, join the Facebook group, harass us. We would love to have you. We would love to have you show up and give us some crap. As always, take a look at Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. They've
Yes.
got something for you. They're making cables too. And actually, I wanted to talk about this real briefly. Great Lakes Guitar Pickup cables. I've got a 20-footer that I was given at GearFest, and it was originally going to be a giveaway item. I'm going to actually hang on to it, and that's because I've done some abuse to it to test it. And it's every bit as good as the sinusoid cable I use normally.
Yeah.
Silent plug and the whole schmear, and it's robust, and you can run it over with a tank and it'll keep working.
Nice.
I have nothing bad to say about it. It sounds good too. So if you're looking for an inexpensive cable option that's custom shop quality, you can reach out to Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. They do that too. So I need to talk about next week. Remind me. We need to talk about wrist grips. Like really badly, we need to talk about wrist grips because I'm using mine religiously and I have a lot of good things to say. So
nice.
I've been David.
I've been Jim.
And tonight we were Practical Guitars.
Woohoo.